is for, and yes, probably the people that are not at all familiar with Star Trek, which there aren't a lot of you guys. Well, there are. But a whole lot of you are, at least to some degree, familiar with Star Trek. For me, growing up, there were a couple of main foci in terms of how to deal with the rest of my family. One of which was religion, Judaism. Different family members held it different ways, different people practiced it different ways. There was also the fact that all of us considered ourselves American citizenry. Most people in my family also voted. Not that a lot of them followed politics all that much. I probably followed it the closest of anyone. Giving my parents and times grandparents previews of all the candidates and all the issues when I was like 8 or 9 and 10 years old, because they look at me and they'd be like, who's this? And I'd tell them, and that would often indeed, even though again I was nowhere near 18, I started when I was 7 or 8. Whoever it was, assuming there wasn't hacking back then, which it probably was, that's who got the vote, in terms of based upon, in part, the descriptions of an under 10-year-old child. Of course, I'd always give whoever it was like 3 or 4 sources, so by that point they knew who they were dealing with. Because at one point they tried to say, you sure you know what you're talking about? I was like, yeah. But more directly than that, and far less controversial than that, was Star Trek and other sci-fi. Star Trek was generally the focus, in terms of the concept of what are you going to compare who to. If you didn't know all the main characters of the original series, you were going to be at a loss of about a third of normal conversations, because you just wouldn't understand language. You wouldn't be able to get any of the references. So in essence, and I think that was actually even more so than actually, the Jewish religion, is if you didn't know Star Trek, you'd be even worse. There were also other sci-fi references, and other literary references, as well, in terms of pop culture, but it was mainly Star Trek. It's a little bit Doctor Who, but as we're celebrating today the 50th anniversary of the first airing, with I know that one of my aunts participated in the writing campaign. I think my dad did too, to keep the original series on the air longer. And that's one of the reasons that when I recently was, did get to go to a day of the convention, because I saw that no matter what the hell I did, school was not going to be possible this semester. No way. Because in the end it would have cost me nearly my entire month's income just for this month to start school. Actually, more than that when you included textbooks, because it would have cost about 150 textbooks, 180 in transportation, and 350 in just the payments that would have been due. So that's already more than 80% of my household monthly income. So instead I went there to preserve my sanity, because I was really, really down from all this stuff. My husband, thankfully, he's on the mend finally. He hasn't had an attack of whatever's going on in 4 days. I'm probably going to go to campus probably either Monday or next Monday or Tuesday to go through with financial aid to figure out when I can indeed return. As I recall, because this is when I originally entered the college, during a not a fall but a spring semester, there's more financial aid if you do it that way in terms of monies available. So that might actually cover it, and therefore I'll be able to at least attend a full semester then. Which is to say, at that point I might be able to attend 3 classes, and that might actually be just the best route. And therefore, in the end, I won't have missed anything. I'll just have been able to see my husband fully back to health. So, but again, my husband is also a fellow Trekkie and a fellow Whovian. I recently got him into Babylon 5 as well, which is why it was such a big thrill. My husband didn't get so much into Stargate, but that's why, in terms of those two people, why it was such a big thrill to meet both Walter Koenig and Armin Shimon. All in all, I'd say the biggest booster out of my state of head or down was, the man that I know both as Quark and as Antares, the Nox, in terms of Stargate and the Ferengi. So, because by remembering my name like 5 minutes later and seeing me in passing, he reminded me of one of the things that was so downputting about the shelter system, which was that for 9 months they might have known your name, but they wouldn't call you by it. They refer you constantly by your room number. And so, to reinforce the concept of you were just a number to them. So that was a big lifting for me that I really needed. But yeah, and that was actually my first experience at a Star Trek convention as well. So it was, I've wanted to, I think, go to one since I was like 8 or 9. But this was the first one that I actually at least got to go to a day of. Next time, it'll definitely be with my husband. Whatever we need to do, whatever we need to get, we'll make a full weekend of it. He might need a power, a motor scooter or whatever. Doesn't matter, we'll figure out something. Although, to be honest, from what I remember of at least the Javits Center, is if I just got him a cab ride to the door, he probably would have been okay for now. Yeah, for me, it's science fiction, and it's political activism. And to some degree, the science fiction and the science, well, actually, there's also philosophy in terms of my spirituality. That's one of the reasons that, to me, great sci-fi is kind of all of that. It has to have the political stuff. It has to have the science. It has to have the philosophy. Otherwise, it's missing something. It has to have a perspective. Star Trek definitely had that. Has it. Doctor Who definitely, it started actually as a historical fiction to try and teach kids history. So it definitely has that, and it's remained that concept throughout its various runs, with various actors playing the title role. It's very important to me, though, and this goes into every aspect of my life: infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Maybe that goes back to why I hate labels of most kinds. I believe in the concept of infinite diversity. I love the various combinations. That's why I've said to many people and I meant it, that if I ever were to come upon someone who had all of the same exact opinions that I do, and once I found that, I would run away in fear from that person. Not that I would necessarily be outright scared, but that I'd be confused as all can be. And that I would really wonder, if one of us hadn't lost ourselves along the path of discovering that we were identical. I'm not a blind follower, and so to me, that to find someone that would be that identical person would be more frightening than anything. I love the person I am, but at the same time, I love differences and meeting different people more. Just if you disagree with me, do so agreeably. I love playing with different ideas and comparing and contrasting them, but I'm fine, with staying disagreeing. It's not a matter of you're an idiot or I'm an idiot, or bad or whatever. It's just glorious difference, especially if it can be handled politely. To all of you, live long and prosper. Shalom. Thank you for watching.